financial problems, elder law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by Thav Gross. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. And this segment, Pat Simasco, our special guest, is going to lead us through a discussion that's going to start with hot issues in Medicare, and then we're going to migrate to hot issues in Medicaid because there's been some major developments in Michigan in the last quarter of 2014. Now, if you remember, we had started off and we covered Social Security with Pat in September. We did 2-3 segments on Social Security rules. This is just an extension of that campaign I said that we were going to go on of exploring the issues that you cross when you cross that 60 threshold as you move on into your senior years, so to speak.
Right.
I don't want to say.
No, we did touch on Medicare earlier, and there's been changes since we originally talked about it.
Which
One of
were
our first shows, we talked about you turning 62 and whether or not you should. And at 65,
Right.
What do you do?
I only turned 60, Pat.
I know, but when you, you
I
said
didn't
he was
turn-
70.
I didn't turn 62.
You're 60? Wow.
Yeah. Can you remember that big guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes we have a debate as to whose memory is better.
Yeah, but
You
you
remember-
can never remember what we
I said,
debated.
do you remember the conversations? How's that? All right, so here's the thing that I want to start off with. First of all, let's go back and just recap what is Medicare, because people get confused between Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare, and I'm taking this right from the Medicare.gov website, is the federal health insurance program for people who are 65 or older, certain younger people with disabilities, and people with end-stage renal disease, which is permanent kidney failure. There are 4 parts to Medicare. There's part that I like the government sometimes. There's Part A, Part B, Part C, and Part D. Part A is your hospital insurance, and Part A covers inpatient hospital stays. Part B, which is the biggest part that impacts people on a day-to-day basis because you have to pay for it, is Medicare insurance. And that covers your doctor's services, outpatient care, medical supplies, and preventive services. Part C is what we call the Medicare Advantage plans that's available in several states through health maintenance organizations. And it's kind of like what we would consider to be supplemental coverage to add what basic Medicare is not covering.
It's the Medicare gap policy. It's the difference.
Right.
It's your
So
copay.
which is kind of an essential thing to have. Otherwise, you get buried on your non-covered expenses.
Yeah, well, and that's the one thing I do just want to say is that in retirement, Medicare is the only mandatory cost that you have. You cannot opt out of Medicare. Did you know that? You cannot opt out of Medicare. You have to have it.
But
you're
don't
talking
have-
about Part
but you
A
don't
or
have-
Part B?
And they're going to take it right out of your Social
They're
Security
going to
check.
take it out of your and if you don't take it, they will stop paying you your Social Security check. That is the only mandatory health care. So you think Medicare premiums are going to go through the roof? I'm going to opt out and get another policy? They won't allow you
So if you're
to.
not collecting Social Security because you didn't meet the 14-year rule, then what happens?
Well, at 65 that you're entitled to it. I don't know. There'll be a cost for it. I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna actually check on that one too. I was
Not
thinking about
many people fit into that category.
Right. Most people have managed
But don't
to
most
get their
people
work
sort of fit in?
years
Because people are working much longer now, and Ken's only a few
What if you were a
years.
trust fund baby and you never worked?
Ken's only
You
a few
have to-
years
And you
away
married
from 65.
and you married someone who never worked.
So you're 65 or you're 66 years old. You basically are required to
Yes.
participate
If-
in Medicare,
if-
and you're still working, and you've
No. If you have health insurance through a employer,
got a Blue Cross plan with your employer.
then you don't have to because you're still working. When you
Yeah, but-
stop working, then you have to get
But
Medicare.
But
you're
if
jumping
if
ahead
you're
of
employed, can you pick up Medicare
Yes.
and then regardless, even though you have employment, you have your insurance through your employer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because doesn't that potentially, if you're responsible for your own premiums, allow you to have a reduction in your premiums at your employer?
Oh, absolutely. That's when you get the Medicare, and Medicare becomes primary, and then you have the supplemental policy. The point is, if the Medicare premiums are going to go through the roof in future years, you're stuck with it. You're not going to be able to opt out.
Let's get a little bit more structured, guys, so we can get to exactly what you're talking about, Pat, because that's the hot issue that we want to get to. But before we get there, there's also Part D. Part D is Medicare prescription coverage, which is an important element as well. How do you apply for Medicare? There's an online application. It takes about 10 minutes. Just so you know, when you hear these terms, Medicare is managed by CMS, which is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They run our medical system in this country. They're an extremely powerful organization. They're the evil empire from the standpoint of what most physicians think at times, because they impose so many rules and restrictions and so forth. When do you apply, which is what we were talking about here? And I've got if you're watching on the TV version of the show, we'll put the chart up. But basically, your enrollment is 1 to 3 months before you reach age 65. If you do that, then your Medicare will start at age 65. And then if you don't stay within those parameters, it delays the effective date that Medicare coverage starts. There's also a general enrollment period, which you hear them talking about right now, which runs January 1 through March 31, where if you've missed the initial enrollment period, you then step in and enroll into the general period, and your coverage becomes effective July 1 of that year.
There's so many different, and you're going to see it on the slide, times when it starts and when it stops, and when you have to have applied for it. And if you apply for it 2 or 3 months after you reach the age of 65, then you don't get it till 3 months afterwards. Is there any benefit to actually waiting beyond the age of 65?
They absolutely tell you not to wait. All there can be is bad things coming from it. There's no gain to be had. Medicare, you don't get extra money if you defer taking advantage of Medicare. Now, it's a mandatory thing.
If you're collecting Social Security at that point, or if you've opted to collect your Social Security, shouldn't it just automatically happen instead of?
You got to spend your 10 minutes online and register. You got to do what you're supposed to do.
So how much does it cost?
Be aware of this.
How much does it cost?
We're going to go to Medicare Part B premiums. That's one of the hot issues that we're moving into, but it's basically based upon your income. Your base Medicare Part B rate for 2014 is $104.90 a month. That's if you're making less than $85,000 a year on your 2012 return. We'll be back and explain it further after the break.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
Thav Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances, and contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. All right, before I go into the premiums, let's do announcements, and then we'll come back. All right, we've got a seminar coming up Wednesday, December 17th called Figuring Out 2015, focusing on preserving future income and savings, how to make sure that you leverage yourself so that you minimize debt, put cash in the bank. If you're carrying too much credit card debt, we've got the strategies to get rid of it. If you've got a house underwater or rental property underwater, how to deal with that, how to address student loan issues. That's what that seminar is about. There's also going to be another one coming up in 2015 on January 13th called Fresh Start for 2015. If you want to sign up for the December seminar, go to thavgross.com or lawandreality.com, or you can call 888-235-HELP. Pat and I are going to get together shortly and announce our next elder law seminar. We've got to pick a date. That's going to occur in February of this year. We've got some free reports. Pat's put together a free report, The Retiree's Guide to Social Security. You can obtain that report by going to ssifreereport.com, or you can call our office at 888-235-HELP. And we also have a special report, How to Save Your Home with Regulation X, The Hidden Secrets, that I wrote, and it's called regxhomesaver.com is the link to obtain that free report. And similarly, you can call the office and obtain it just by mail.
So, Ken, you basically gave the initial cost of Medicare.
Wait, I didn't finish thanking our sponsors, if it's okay, 'cause I'd like to do that.
Hurry up, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Thank Pat.
Pat, I'd like to thank Pat from Simasco Law, Gold Star Law, Trips Auto Shop and Collision Center in Jackson Lansing, U.S. Staffing in Jackson Lansing, and I want to thank Brian and David Einstandig from Thav Gross as our sponsor as well. Now go ahead.
All right.
My
Dave.
last name's
And ask-
Small. His name's Einstein.
What did I
Cost
say,
of
Brian?
You just said
Einstein?
Brian and David Einstein.
Okay.
So
Sorry about that.
Okay.
You look so much alike.
Bottom line is cost.
I wouldn't want to slight you.
Costs started at $104 a month, depending on your income. If you're above 200, based upon the 2000, based upon the rules now, if you're above 214 grand, you're going to be basically, if you're
paying
filing joint,
$335.70 a
$335.
month. Yeah.
So it depends on how much you make. Now,
So it scales up. All right. So here's what.
And though they look at not only your Social Security and pension, but any IRA distribution.
right. So if you have required mandatory distributions, that's going to get added to that.
What's a
Or-
required mandatory distribution, David?
So if you retire and you hit 70 and a half, you have to start pulling out approximately 4% per year out of your IRA. But as people need extra money to buy a cottage, to go on a trip, and they're pulling more money out of the IRA,
It's
that
gonna
can
bump
kick
them
them
up.
up into the higher
All
bracket.
right, now let's talk about that in terms of, because that's what we were really getting to as the hot issue, is that Medicare costs are likely rising a lot more than people realize. They are rising, and you have to look at it. And Pat, you introduced me to this guy. His name is Dan McGrath of Jester Financial, who wrote a book, What You Don't Know About Retirement Will Hurt You, in 2013. And he also, I found an article actually in LinkedIn on him. It says medical costs, what they are and where they can go. And he runs through this exact scenario. And let's start with this. And he points this out, is that if you have, even at the base rates at $104.90 a month for Part B, if you have prescription coverage under Part D, and you have a typical Medigap plan cost, which runs about $181 a month, you're spending right now $4,069.92
per year.
On your Medicare coverage.
Correct.
And he points out troubled waters ahead. And the troubled waters are on two fronts. One is inflation for healthcare costs is running at least twice the average rate of inflation in the country.
Correct.
And Medicare Parts B and D are also based upon income.
Right.
And that's where we run into problems. So when you look at the inflation rates, they're mind-boggling. And Part B, for the last 47 years, this is not like you'd call a short-term track record. 47 years, Medicare Part B has been inflating at roughly 7.856% annually. And Medicare Part D, they're predicting a 7.1% increase each of the next 8 years. That's on prescription.
And that's why he says, don't worry. The government's not worrying about Social Security. Social Security goes up about 1.7% this year and last year. But your Medicare rates are going up 7-8% per year. They deduct that right out of your Social Security. So your Social Security check is going to be dropping
Going
dramatically because your Medicare rates are
Yeah,
going
you get
up.
a 1.5 boost on your Social Security, and then you get a 6% bump in your Medicare costs. So your check ends up going down, not
and
up.
the cost to provide health care is probably going up well in excess of what these bumps are in the premium increase.
Oh, and that's what drives the bump.
And that gap is going to hit a wall if things don't change.
That's A. And then B, now let's look at the income factor. Now, here's where the income factor comes in, and it's a little bit on the complicated side, is there is, since 2007, Medicare has a means testing premiums through its what they call their initial retirement monthly adjustment amount. Leave it to our government.
The IRMA.
The IRMA.
It's the IRMA.
You know, I had a dog named Irma.
No.
I had two poodles, Candy and Irma.
With an I or an E?
Irma was named after Irma LaDouce.
With an E?
Do you know who Irma LaDouce even was?
No,
You guys
I'm
are
not
pretty
the one who
young.
turned 60.
Irma LaDouce, I think, was a famous actress.
You don't even know. Keep going.
I'll bring that up. We'll cover that. At the break, I'll research
You were
it.
worried about having useless time on the show.
So the problem is that it assesses an added surcharge on the top of the current B and D premiums for those who have too much income in retirement. And that's what we were just going through with the scaled charts. But now, as the budget keeps getting proposed each year, and if you look at the president's proposed budget in 2015 for years going forward, what they're talking about with the brackets, and I'll flash them up on the screen on the TV version, but just to make it simple, it's working like this. What they're doing is they're saying you're going to bump up in your rate faster. You're gonna, if you earn less money than you did before, you're gonna kick into the higher rate, and you're gonna kick into the ultimate top rate by earning less money than you were allowed to earn in 2014.
And the premiums are going up much higher as well in each bracket.
So from a political perspective, this seems like to me, if you were to say, is it a Republican or a Democratic model, I'd say it's more of a Democratic model.
This is not Obamacare. Obamacare did not create this.
No, I understand, but it goes to the concept of redistribution of wealth.
Well,
and the question is, where are we going to go with the new administration
the
going forward?
I don't know that I agree with that because this is just more costs. It's
those with more money are going to be paying.
Here's the problem. We got 10 seconds. We're going to come up to the break. This is the deficit problem, and this is the rising cost of health care and our aging population. We'll be back after the break.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Fav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call Thav Gross.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call Thav Gross today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, welcome back. All right, before we get right into the Medicare issue and the premium issue, I just want to tell you that Irma La Deuce was a movie, 1963 release. She was a prostitute. She was played by Shirley MacLaine, and the top male in the cast was Jack Lemmon. So that's where my dog Irma was named after. Not named after the IRMAA in the Medicare premium issue. So here, let's put this in perspective now. So what this is saying, what Dan's point is that he's making to us is Medicare costs are going to be going up, and they're going to be going up at a greater rate than the Social Security because of the inflation cost and the bracket creep, because you're going to be paying a higher premium based upon less income than you currently are as you go forward. That means you're going to have a situation where you're going to be paying an enormous, at some point in time, the cost of Medicare insurance is going to become burdensome.
Correct.
Does it become burdensome? It depends on your income. The bracket.
Yeah, that's the point, though. You think, well, my mom, she only has Social Security, so she doesn't fit that, or my mom has Social Security and pension, doesn't fit it, but she sells the cottage. She has a $200,000 selling price. When she sells that cottage, that cost, that income gain will be part of the Medicare income, and that will kick her into the highest.
What happens in the next year if
they do not have to reduce it in the next year?
So you have to be proactive.
How do you go about getting them to reduce it? Is there
you have to appeal it. First of all, if you're going to be selling the cottage, sell it in the year 2015 or 16. Don't have it coming. It's going to start in the year 2018. That's when it's slated to come in. So you have to plan for that ahead of time.
All right, but let's say I'm 66 in 2018. I'm
Correct.
not going to be 66 in 2018 for the record.
Okay, we'll put up a disclaimer on the show.
But if I was going to be, I'm looking at the time where I want to use the cottage. I maybe finally have a chance to use. The last 20 years that I've been paying for it, I haven't had a chance to use it because I've had to spend my time with Brian and David working every stinking day.
Okay, so here's the answer. You, instead of start taking required minimum distributions out at age 70, which can throw you in a higher bracket, chip away at it ahead of time to keep you at the lowest brackets possible. Later on, if you have to sell it and it kicks you up and the Medicare goes up, they do not have to reduce it the following years unless you appeal it to go to Medicare and say, hey, my income isn't $200,000 this year. It's back down to my Social Security.
Do they automatically agree with the appeal? Or I mean,
we don't know. It's brand new law that's going to be coming out.
I mean, hopefully at some point in time the appeal process will become
almost automatic based on your filings.
Yeah, but probably it's going to be an administrative red tape nightmare until then.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but it's logical that you're going to have those one-time income hits on sale of anything, especially real estate or whatever it may be, and it has to be adjusted.
But the key, if you're looking at what the reality is, most every mom doesn't even realize what they can do. So they may
but what
be
the whole
stuck
thing
with
sounds like to me, Ken, is it sounds like a little bit of a Ponzi scheme, because you know that at the end of the day, it keeps funneling itself, but that gap keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to bust.
It goes to the bigger issue, and really we started talking about it, I think, earlier, probably in the previous segment of the show when we were talking about the budget deficit.
That's exactly right.
And at the
It
end of the
loops
day,
around.
you have all of these baby boomers who are going to they're going to live. You know, if you're alive at 60, your chances of living to 95 to 100 are more likely than not. It's if when you start at 0, your life expectancy is probably 85, 86. But if you're alive at 60, your life expectancy is much farther. And we're going to have all these baby boomers living a lot longer, and it's going to bury the system. Now, we sit here and we look at this and we go, oh my God, we don't want to pay for this. These numbers are terrible. And we do planning to figure out how to minimize that cost because that's what our job is to do. But on a macro basis, we have a serious problem in the country. How's the country going to pay for Medicare cost, health coverage cost? That's where CMS is what I said.
Because they're going to keep
deemed the evil
reducing the
empire.
reimbursements to the healthcare providers.
That's what the healthcare providers see happening, but is that a fair outcome? And at some point in time, what are the doctors going to do? They're going to say, "Hey,
Going to make $600
But
a
at
year instead
some
of $800.
point-
no, I'd rather be a driver for Uber."
At some point, the bills got to get paid, and the costs keep going up, and you
So the
can't.
doctors should pay the cost.
The doctor should bear the cost. The individual should bear the cost. The system should bear the cost, which means that
My doctor
you and I
clients
are going to
don't think
pay
they
more
should
taxes.
Bear the cost.
You and I are going to pay more taxes. The doctors are going to get reimbursed less, and the premiums are going to go up because that's what happens.
I'm hearing you, Brian, but David, your doctor clients, Pat, your doctor clients don't think that they should pay the cost.
No, but I know.
can tell you right now, one of my doctor clients who listens to this show right now, I better put my phone away because he's going to be screaming when he hears this.
But
He
they're
works
right
very
to
hard
scream.
for his money.
Everybody's right to scream.
But let me wait. We're
The
here.
fact
but-
is that you have no choice. If everything keeps costing more, you can't just magically
Just
say,
increase the taxes for everybody.
my
"Okay, there's a solution."
wait, but what we are as lawyers and advocates for our clients. We have to advocate for our client, and we have to do what's best for the client. And the best for the client is, instead of start using tax-deferred vehicles like 401ks and IRAs, which is just going to have huge problems in the future, start using life insurance to fund your retirement because it's all tax-free.
That's got to be. We're going to put that on the list for the show that we do after. We're going to go to Medicaid
Right.
next, on the next elder law segment of the show, and then we're going to go into
Yeah,
how
but
life
you're
insurance
assuming
becomes
that
vehicle.
you're assuming that they would continue to be tax-free on
Well,
an ongoing
Just
basis.
so you guys know, we're running out of time on the segment. Pat, I want to thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us on this segment of Law and Reality, elder law specialist. Medicare it's going to be a big problem for a lot of years. We're going to have a lot to talk about on the show with it. We'll be back with the next segment of Law and Reality. Stay tuned.